Let's talk about Jimmy Wanjigi. For those who don't know him, is this aspiring presidential candidate. You see, in 2022, he was supposed to vie for presidency, but he was sort of rejected. He was disqualified by the IEBC, which is the electoral board, the Kenya's electoral board. Yeah, I remember Chebukati, who was the chairman. Yeah, the late, of course, he's dead right now. But by then, he's the one who said that Chebukati does not meet the qualifications. Sorry, I mean Jimmy Wanjigi does not meet the qualifications to vie for presidency. And I was suspecting, some Kenyans were suspecting that probably it's the certificates that he had. And I remember Jimmy Wanjigi being so hungry, and so disappointed that he was not given that opportunity or that approval to vie for president, for the presidency, right? And so is this politician who is active, and he was born in a rich family. They were doing quite well, because I remember there's this video. I'll just attach it there. Jim Wanjiki was saying that he's never, boarded a matatu in his life.
Steam red. This one was very particular. Ask him if he's ever boarded a matatu. It's a yes or no.
I can see Willis laughing. No, I haven't.
You haven't?
No.
How many bunkers does your house have?
That's for you to discover.
That means that this guy just grew up in a very wealthy background, because considering a country like Kenya, matatu is something very common, very common. Like, it's very hard to find someone who's not been on a matatu. So Jimmy Wanjigi has never been on a matatu, because literally he's always had a car, personal vehicles, right? That makes sense. And he's not had the need to be in a matatu, right? Like most Kenyans. Which, thinking of it, having always used matatus most of my life, I think I can tell, that this guy really grew up in a well-off family, and the first time I heard of that, I was like, wow, this is crazy, right? Yeah, but there are some people who are like that, because I also saw in Dr. Ofweneke's podcast, he talked about having started with the children of the elite, and by elite I talk of the Kenyatas. For those who don't know, Kenyatta was the first president of this country, and to be specific, I think it was Uhuru Kenyatta, who was the fourth president, of Kenya. And that just tells you about the background, And he went ahead to speak of when he was 16 and his father gave him a car to drive to school, right? And at some point, teachers hated him because he was parking with the teachers, right? Imagine you're teaching high school, and this kid, parks right beside you, right? And then you go to class, you're supposed to teach him to be successful, right? Crazy. And so there, in today's video, I'm just going to discuss some things that he talked about that I found interesting. And one of them is his idea of boarding schools. And then another one is the idea of having many kids.
All right? Because we are not going to stop them from giving birth. That one I disagree. They have it right. No, watoto tunataka. Oh, children we want. We are not going to become a country that is not getting children. Actually, I don't know that you have children.
I have 3, sir.
Oh, very good.
Hapo na
Hiyo sasa ni kazi ya Mungu hivi. know I have two.
Yeah, I saw.
And they
I
say
introduced them.
two. They say is not the work of God. You know, God says you go forth and multiply. So I was told by a very good bishop of mine that what I did was just replace. When you go, your son is there. When your wife goes, your daughter is there. That's replacement. Multiplication is when you hit 3. So congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Wewe umetenda kazi
Umejikaza
ya
sana.
Mungu.
Miaka 15, 10 na masita.
Keep
Three
it up.
beautiful
Keep
girls.
it up. Keep it up. And in the Safina government, when you hit 6, when you hit 3, we start reducing your tax. If you get six-
Wait, hold up.
If you get 6, you will never pay tax.
Please,
Yes.
explain the correlation, sir.
Because you're doing God's work. And you are bringing forth the greatest production resource that we could have in a
The
country.
first important raw
The
material.
greatest raw material you can have in a country is the human resource. Why should we be punitive to you?
So you said exclusively on less than 30.
Yes.
That you get up to 6 children.
You get up to 6 children who tell tax. Why should you pay tax? You brought forth a great product
I have work to
that
do,
is
sir.
going to help this country milele kwa milele.
I have work to do after this show. Only that the manufacturer is not there. So I need to start a process of manufacturing.
I'm very clear about this.
I like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very orthodox thinking, though.
Why is it an orthodox?
I mean, who would think? I mean, the more the birth rate,
You know,
there's a reward for it.
you ask yourself, didn't we used to do that long time ago?
Not here. I've only heard of.
Before colonialism, were we not people that got many children?
Yes, we did.
The Mzungu came and told us we used to do that
Why?
because we didn't have medicines, we were dying, infant mortality was very high, so we were trying to get an average. But it's because we didn't even have birth control, we didn't care.
I think some people could find this controversial. Yeah, because especially the idea of having many kids. He spoke of he said that he supports the idea because one of his religious beliefs, because he's a Christian, and the Bible says that we should go to the world and multiply, right? And well, with today's economy, I think a lot of people can disagree or might not agree with what he says, because now, considering the economic, the economy, you find that you need a lot of money to educate your kids, right? Well, that can be a bit different when you are in a third world country. I mean, it's not that expensive compared to when you're in a first world country. Um, so he was supporting it because of that. And in fact, he talked of having 2 kids. And at some point he stated that, a good friend of his said that he is not done well because now he has only 2 kids, and that is basically a replacement. And so he was saying it goes against God's command, which instructs us to sort of go to the world and multiply, right? But him, he just replaces. He has just replaced. Because when him and his wife dies, that is, then the kids take over. That's just a simple replacement, right? But now someone who has more than 2 kids, that is 3 going forward, has actually, abided by the command, right? And that means that they are multiplying, right? And so he talked about family planning being this foreign idea, the idea which was imposed to us by foreigners, right? That we need to be monogamous, instead of polygamous, right? And he spoke of the idea of divorce not being a thing in African society, because this is true, because I think before during pre-colonial periods or before the colonial times, Africans were not supposed to divorce their kids, right? I mean, divorce their wives. They used to marry multiple wives, right? And take care of all of them. And there was nothing like family planning, because then they didn't need to do family planning. I mean, in fact, more kids were considered a blessing, and more kids were considered a form of wealth, right? If you have a lot of kids, you have a lot of cows, then you're considered rich. Yeah. And in fact, because now Jim Wanjigi is aspiring to be president someday, and he has this party called Safina Party, and he spoke of he said that when he becomes president, those with 3 kids and above will have a reduction of tax or even tax free. In fact, he said if you have 6 kids or more, then you don't have to pay tax. Why should you? Because then now you've contributed a lot to the society. And now let's look at the benefits of just having many kids. And I mean, from the societal and national economic perspective, you find that countries like Japan, South Korea, and some parts of Europe, you find that they encourage people, their citizens, to have more kids because more kids today equals more workers or future taxpayers, right? It makes sense because now if you have more kids, that means that more people are going to be working in future, and then that will equate to higher taxes for the government, right? And then it can also help, offset things like pension burdens, healthcare costs for elderly, labor shortages. You see, and then now I think this is the idea that Jimanjik had, that if all children grow up healthy, educated, and productive, they can contribute millions in lifetime taxes and economic output, you know. And I think that's the reason why he says that when he wins the presidency, then those with 6 kids, they don't need to pay any taxes because they've already contributed, by the virtue of just having a lot of kids. That means that they've already paid future taxes, now. And I found it very interesting, and some people might find it controversial, especially those who believe in family planning, right? And then now, but now from a household and family perspective, having a lot of kids could mean a lot of expenses, and as this affects those who are in developed countries a lot, because now I think in the US, the estimated cost of raising a kid up to 18 years is about 250,000 US dollars in cost, and that is not even counting a college, right? So that means that by the end of college, the kid will have costed you more than $250,000. That's a quarter of a million. Now, if you have 6 kids, 250,000 multiplied by 6, that is going to bring you to 1.5 million. In the minimum, right? And that can be a lot, considering you find that someone could be earning about $5,000 to $7,000 or even $8,000 a month, and the cost of rent and other bills are also in that budget, right? That means that you end up saving less, and now having a lot of kids could be costly, right? And then another thing that Jim Wanjigi spoke about is the idea of boarding schools. That there is a need to review or have a discussion about it, because a lot of people are speaking of bad experiences, especially emotionally, in boarding schools. Yeah. And I think this is something that is being normalized in Kenya. You find that when kids just grow to 5 years, not 5 years, I mean 10 years, they are taken to boarding schools in most cases, in most families, especially those parents who are busy working, they incorporate, or they're busy with their businesses. You find that they send away their kids to boarding school uh, to sort of ease the burden of raising them, right? And I remember a long time ago when I was in boarding school, I mean, my parents did not take me there. I'm the one who insisted to be taken there. But when I was there, there was this kindergarten kids, very young, and sometimes you wonder why they were even sent there in the first place, because now the teachers and the matrons have to do the taking care of them, right? They need to like help them grow, because they're still young. So Jim Wanjigi was explaining his experiences with Gen Zs, right? And so he went ahead and spoke of, the emotional burden, that these kids end up having. And you find that when kids are taken away, they are not available from their parents, right? And so there's no that emotional connection to the parents, which is very important for kids, right? Find that when those kids grow, they really do not have that much connection. I mean, they respect them because they are their parents, but they are not that close. You find that communication with a parent maybe could be something like once a week, once a month, even, right? And that can be far. In fact, I remember last year when the Gen Zs were demonstrating, you find that the president was advising the parents to, to talk to their kids concerning the idea of, to talk to them, to talk to the kids not to demonstrate, and cause chaos, right? But now, how will the president, how will the parents talk to the kids if they don't have that emotional connection, right? I mean, that was what Wanjiko was saying. He was wondering, And in fact, he went ahead and spoke about the relationship between those people imprisoned and those people who come from single mothers. And he argued that 6 out of 10 kids are born from single mothers, right? And if you go to prisons, you find that up to 80% of the prisoners are from single mothers, right? That can tell you the impacts that a single motherhood could lead, right? It could determine the presence of both parents could determine the future of that child. I mean, some people are arguing that growing up from a single mother means that, especially if you're a man, could make you emotional, because then now you don't understand how to manage your emotions, right? You always become emotional like women, yet you're a man, right? And so you find that you get hungry very fast, and most of the time you find yourself breaking the law, probably committing things like serious offenses like murder, and you end up in jail, right? So he was talking about that. Yeah. What do you think? What do you think about those two ideas? Yeah. The idea of boarding school and the idea of, having many kids. Leave your thoughts in the comments section. And of course, if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one. Bye.